Hey guys, for today I wanted to show the best ways that you can make Meseta right now on PSO2 New Genesis so that you can get several million Meseta per hour just like me. For this, I'll be explaining multiple methods out there that I use, as I think just having a single farm, even though it might be the most efficient one out there, can be boring or even drive you insane. Some of these I've explained before in previous videos, but I'll explain them in depth as if they were brand new to you, as like you were a new player. Before I start, I want to say that the majority of these methods will be obtaining items to sell to other players in the personal shop or the player market, which can be accessed by any of the personal shop staff NPCs. But to do this, you need a shop pass or premium. And then to get these different things, there's multiple methods. So in the shop tab down below, you can go to the SG shop AC, and then you can buy premium, which also gives you that personal shop access, or you can just buy straight up down below a personal shop use for 30 days, which costs a little bit less AC, but you don't get all the extra benefits of premium. But if you don't want to spend real money and are a free-to-play player, you still can get access, but it's a little bit more limited. So if you go to the task/quest tab and then mission pass, it's actually on the free track at tier 24. So if you get up to that tier, you can get a 3-day personal shop use. So you can get 3 days every single month. There's also another method, but it doesn't happen quite as often. Sometimes there's a treasure scratch that can appear. Last one was in September, where there's a small chance you can get additional 3-day passes for the personal shop. I don't know how often these would happen, but they do imply with this volume 1 here in the naming that there will be more in the future. To get tickets for this, at least the first time around, you had to do urgent quests and do certain tasks within the game to get tickets to scratch on this. So it's completely free to play to get any of these items inside, including that 3-day pass. But for the one that's more consistent to happen, which is the mission pass one, you need to do dailies and weeklies, which are a great way to start off the day to get Meseta. This can be found in the task/quest menu, just like the mission pass in the tasks section, and then dailies and weeklies. These will open up to you after you do a few quests in the beginning of the game, and then each of these dailies only give 1,000 Meseta, but once you do 4 of these, you'll be able to complete this, which gives you 130,000 Meseta per day, so that's a nice chunk of change. And for each of these, that also give you stars to give you more tiers within that mission pass that we talked about. Every 10 stars that you get will give you another tier. For the weeklies, they don't give as crazy of Meseta as that one daily. Some of them just give 50k, some none at all. You just gotta pay attention to it, but they do give a lot of those stars on top with some other items. So they're still worth doing, and a lot of them are just pretty much automatic or really easy to do. A couple, for example, are just completing the daily tasks anyways, so if you're doing the dailies for the 130k per day, you'll be able to get these done for additional 50k each, as well as some other additional rewards. But speaking of that mission pass, let's go back to that because there's some things that you can sell in there for Meseta that's just pretty much free. So on the mission pass, on the gold track, there's these alpha reactors. So if you sell these, like convert them to cash, you get 3,500 Meseta each, so just free money. There's also these Meseta boosters on tier 4 in the free section. There's a 25% boost, so every time an enemy that you kill drops Meseta just straight up, you get 25% extra for an hour. There's also a 50% one on tier 14 on the paid for track. So that can give you some more Meseta there. There's also other items within this pass that you can sell to other players on the player market that's actually worth something. So these Gold Prim 2s might be worth it to sell. There's also Gigas 4s currently on tier 37 to 39, which these sell about like 20k to 30k each right now. That's like 200 to 300,000 Meseta just for free right there. There's other things mixed in between, but these mission passes change every so often with their augments and whatever other rewards, so it's going to be dependent on the time that you're playing. For this paid for track, though, it's actually not really like real money. You can actually spend star gems, which you can earn in-game or pay for, so it's like a freemium currency, but typically you can earn enough every single month to be able to pay for the gold section, as if you go to the SG shop, and scroll down below, there's this end mission pass gold, which is only 100 star gems, which is very achievable within a month. You can probably even get it in just like a couple days, depending on what you're doing within the game. But if you grab this and consume it for the month, you'll be able to get those rewards on the gold track. There's even a quest by Lydia here that allows you to get an End Mission Pass Gold for free for a new account or the first time that you're doing this using a Mission Pass task. Going back to these Alpha Reactors, these are known as Cashable Items, which you can just sell with converting to cash. And there's multiple ways to actually get these within the game, as well as other ones like it. In Central Aleo, there are 3 spots that respawn daily that give more Alpha Reactors. There's some next to the Halfana Plains North Reaker device across this land bridge over this river. There's some next to the Halfana Plains West Reaker device leading up to the cave under this mountain. And there's some from Central Aleo to South Aleo in this transition spot right around here. But for each of these spots, it's about like 5 Alpha Reactors or so, leading up to, I think, 15 in total per day, so it can give a decent chunk of Meseta. In West Rotem, there are these other cashable items known as Stellar Fragments, which can be found next to the Sagan Mountain Road East Reaker device, all just floating around. And they look like yellow crystals, and there should be 10 of them per day. But they only sell for 2,000 Meseta each, but it's still free Meseta. Going up to Kavaris, there are these things known as Snoll that are around this road here, next to the Misra Woods North Reaker device. For these, you have to smack them like a mining node, but you can actually just use the floating board to sail across and smack each one along the way, and it should give you more Meseta per day. In Stia, underneath into the Dryson plant, there are these things known as invisible boxes that you can find, which can give you Alpha Reactors, but in addition, Infernium, Arms Refiners, and NEX Cubes. So you might not get a ton of Meseta out of those, but there are some useful items inside those boxes too. For all of these on the map, if you want to find them easier, you can go to your gear/sub-palette tab, mags, and then active sonar target settings. Then you can checkmark the valuable items for the Alpha Reactors, Stellar Fragments, and the Snoll, and then checkmark the invisible boxes for the boxes in Stia. This will give you a sonar ping once you are around these items to show you exactly where they're at. You can just follow that and then collect the item. For another cashable item, but isn't found on the map, is a Beta Reactor. You can obtain this currently by participating in the weekly Alliance records. So that means you need to be in an Alliance and do Alliance tasks. This can be found in the personal section, ARCS records, Alliance task records, and this is a whole ranking system competing against other alliances on your ship to see who does the most Alliance tasks for the week. So the one that does the most gets gold here, which gets 5 Beta Reactors. Some of the other top ones get silver for 3 Beta Reactors. Then everybody else who participates gets bronze with 1 Beta Reactor. And these sell for 100,000 each and are distributed throughout your entire alliance based on which ranking that you get. So all of your players could get 5 or 500k Meseta per week if you do a lot of tasks within your alliance. But to at least get bronze for yourself, you need to at least do 3 alliance tasks for the week. So if you don't do at least that yourself, you won't get any of these Beta Reactors. These alliance tasks are usually pretty simple and are sometimes automatic, where you're just killing certain rare enemies, defeating bosses, or sometimes out of the way by killing certain dread enemies across the map, which are little special enemies in the open worlds, or by doing certain activities. But at least doing 3 of them will net you that Beta Reactor. But to get these Alliance tasks, you need to go to Tim, the Alliance NPC, which can be found in any of the different cities. Then you can get up to 9 Alliance tasks per week with this first tab here by accepting them all. You can get 2 Alliance badges as well for each task that you do, which can net you some other rewards in this Alliance badge shop that he also has. Some of these just give you certain currencies that you use for yourself, but there's other things in here that you actually might be able to sell to other players for additional Meseta. There are these quest triggers, which you can get a set of 5 of these per week for each one that cost varying amounts of Alliance badges, between like 2 to 5 of them. For these, they are urgent quests that can be done at any time. Urgent quests only typically show up every few hours or so. So that is very nice for certain players if they're trying to gun for a certain type of item that can come from these. Right now, there's one such thing, Mining Rig Defense Retem, which came out with a new rank, which allows you to get a new 10-star weapon, the Flugel Guard. So that's why people are going for this one in particular. And sometimes in the future, maybe these other ones might get new ranks or get some sort of revamp that gives them new items for them to sell even at higher prices. Right now, this Retem trigger has been selling for like 100,000, 200,000 Meseta each, which you're getting a set of 5. That's like 500k to a mil Meseta per week, pretty much just for free by doing those Alliance tasks. So it can be very nice, but at the same time, the prices on these are volatile. Because just as something could get a new rank, some other content could come out to either give the same exact weapon, but easier, or just give even better drops. Like next week, these aren't really going to be worth to go for, since the 10-star Flugelguard series will be able to drop from Darkfall Solus, which is a 4-man quest, which you can just do all the time without triggers, as well as a new urgent quest of that same Darkfall Solus, which people will be able to do. So this person that bought 200 to try to sell 111k might be shafted come next week. For other items inside, it isn't worth as much. There are these gold prim 2s that you can sell that I mentioned before, but they take 5 alliance badges for just a single one of these. So it's like if you just have the extra badges, you can, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily worth it. The rest of these down here aren't sellable in the player market, so it's just for personal use. And then like these prim armors are just not used at all anymore because these 2s exist. For these battle triggers, they go for yellows and purples, but purples aren't really done anymore. And yellow triggers are just for gaining XP and are very, very common in the open world. So they only sell for 1k Meseta each on the player market. Meseta-wise, though, is it worth doing these quest triggers yourself instead of selling them, or when they show up as urgent quests every few hours or so? Unfortunately, not really. The consistent drops just don't sell for very much, and people are mainly doing these for the insanely rare drops just to have the chance of getting something very good. Like the Mounting Raid Defense Retem, like I said, it can drop that 10-star series, but it's currently the only thing that can, and that's why people are gunning for it instead of something else. But it's just too rare to really rely on Meseta-wise, unless if you're just going at it and at it and at it. But I've heard some people are doing like 50+ runs, 100+ runs, and still not getting this thing, and each run takes like 10 minutes, which you could be spending on something else. The Tasa series, which is another good weapon that sells, just not for as much, is also this way, where it is insanely rare. Maybe not as rare as this, but it's quite up there. Same with the Octo Armor VO, that is also rare in here. I guess not insanely rare, but it doesn't sell for as much because there's other alternatives out there, other Octo Armors, which pretty much do the same thing. The only things that you're getting consistently are materials that you're just using for yourself and can't sell to other players, or other kind of augments materials that sell for very little because they're so common, like Starl Souls, the Strugments here, or the Ret Sovereigns that you get guaranteed every time. The other urgent quests are this way as well, so like the Battle of Halfia Lake, it does have the 3 guaranteed Aegis Soul 4s, which can sell for about 20 to 30,000 right now in the player market, but then everything else just isn't worth selling, or can't sell, or is insanely rare like the Tasa series that we saw in Mounting Raid Defense Retem. So pretty much everything is like this. Darkfall's Interception has the 3 Ready Soul 4, which can sell similarly, same kind of drops. Remnants of Ambition is even kind of worse, has pretty much less drops, a lot of different soul capsules that aren't really worth it. It's all just the same stuff over and over. Typically, when a new urgent quest comes out, it has good drops, but then it drops off as more people farm that quest, since a lot of people are doing it every time it shows up, because when something's new, people want to just farm that one thing. Basically, what I'm saying is if you are insanely lucky and get one of the bigger drops that are rare, like the Tasa series or even the 10-star series, then you can make a lot of Meseta, like 20 mil or a few 100 mil from this 10-star. But with all the consistent drops in here, especially if they're not newer and been out for a while, then you're not going to get like any Meseta. So it's a huge gamble. On the topic of urgent quests, I want to talk about a workaround for Aegis Integra. This was initially gotten from the Battle of Halfia Lake urgent quest by exchanging Neos Astrian series for Aegis Integra at the item trader. So for this, you would go into the Aegis Integra exchange, and then change any of your Neos Astrian weapons here for this material, which you can then convert into Aegis Souls and any of the Dominas here. Some of these sell for Meseta, not much anymore, but it's mainly this Aegis Soul 4 that I'm talking about that still sells for like 20 to 30k Meseta. And then one of these Integra gives you 10 of these Aegis Soul 4, so that is a good chunk of Meseta there every single week. But there's a workaround to getting this Integra that is insanely easy. When Creative Spaces got added a few months ago, we also got this currency called Genesis Points. There's many different ways that you can get this currency, but the more consistent way is by going to people's creative spaces and grabbing their Genesis point trees, where you get up to 1,250 Genesis points every single day. Then you can spend it on build parts, but you can also spend it on Arche here with their exchange shop. So if we go to exchange Genesis points, there's a whole bunch of different options in here. A lot of materials and other little capsules that don't sell for too much. Maybe the Dreadkeeper 4 sells for like a little bit. But the main thing here is that you can get the Aegis Integra. So you can get 5 of this every single month and be able to spend it on those Aegis Soul 4s for free Meseta every single month. You don't have to take too long. It's just like a few seconds, and then in and out, you're good. All of that stuff was pretty much the freebies, but moving on, these will be better if you are max level, which is currently 80, and have decent gear to make it more profitable. The first one I want to talk about is combat zones. These are unlocked very early within the game, like Mount Magnus, Vanford Labs, and Wrestle Forest, and continue on with different spots in the other regions. But they're not really worth farming at the early levels because it is so easy to level within the game. So you want to go for the higher ranks typically to get more Meseta and better drops that sell for more Meseta. You'll know what is a combat zone if you hover over your Euchre device there, and it has this red monster symbol next to its name. You can also tell based on it being a 8-man room versus a 32-man room from an exploration zone. Exploration zone also has this green symbol instead. But going here, you want to go from E's to T's. These are typically little grouped enemies, where the E's are just whatever's there, little fodder. But T's mean a trial where you have to do a specific thing to complete. These trials can range from just killing a few enemies, killing a boss, or even defending a transport truck. There's a wide variety there. But going from E's to T's typically raises this PSE burst gauge bar. This is located right next to your minimap, and it has 5 different segments. Every time you kill something, it has a chance of raising the bar by 1 or by a segment, but it also has a chance of decreasing it by 1. There's a lot of nuances with it as well, but we won't go into that today. But once you get it up to 4 segments on the bar, and then complete a trial, then it will finish it off and cause a PSE burst to occur. These bursts show off a giant rainbow light and spawn enemies over and over again very rapidly. And then during this, you're going to be getting tons of Meseta, tons of drops. At the very end of it, there will be a boss that spawns that can give you additional drops that you wouldn't usually get. And sometimes when you are lucky, you can get a PSE burst encore, which is just another burst following the initial one, so you can do it all over again. But at most, you just get 2 in a row. There's another thing that can occur with the bursts as well, which is called a PSE burst forte, which is a little bit more rare, but it can cause all of the enemies that spawn from it to be gold enemies, which give you more Meseta once killed, and has a higher drop rate for all the drops that it can drop. Ultimately, you want to be going after these bursts as much as possible, as they give you the most in the shortest period of time. But all these combat zones are not created equally in terms of their drops or their enemy placement. Right now, the only ones worth doing are the ones in Alio and Retem because they just got new ranks added to them. I imagine later down the line, Caveris and Stia will as well, but it isn't here yet. But yeah, the ranks I'm talking about are the level 70 ones in these Alio zones, and then the level 80 ones in the Retem zones. The reason why these are so good is because besides just the raw Meseta that you're getting per kill, you're also getting a lot of consistent drops, a lot of common ones with some uncommon in the mix, and at a chance with some rare as well. But because of all the common drops that you're getting, they build up and you can just sell them en masse into the player market. The majority of the examples that you can get here are Strugments A, B, and C, which people usually want to make arms refiners for upgrading. Yellow triggers that people want because they want more XP to level up their classes from the yellow trigger quests. So those sell for only like 1k a pop, but you can get quite a few of those. There's Mastery 3s and 4s. These typically only drop from captains, which can be found in certain trials in these combat zones. The Mastery 4 is very rare, but the Mastery 3 can show up quite often. They don't sell for too much nowadays, but it is some extra Meseta that you could sell for. There's these Gua Mites, Gua Precisions, and like Spirit Precisions and stuff. there's a whole bunch of different combinations of these kind of capsules that are used for trippables in the item lab, basically crafting some better augment. That people want these as materials for those. So these only sell for like 1k a pop, or like 3k a pop, something like that, depending on which one it is. But you get extra Meseta selling those. You get a ton from the Megalotics enemies in the high ranks. There's also certain notes that drop from certain areas. So like Mount Magnus has this Magnus note, which sells for a decent amount, 5k, 6k a pop, and is used for another augment in that item lab as well. There's this Starl Soul, which people want to make another augment in an item lab. That's usually a common occurrence with these lower augments that are common, but 15,000, 19,000, 20,000 maybe you can sell that for. There's these Ale Sovereigns and Ret Sovereigns, so Ret is for Retem, Ale for Aleo. These drop in there as well that can sell for a decent amount. For gear, there isn't too much that you can sell right now. There are these Gold Prim Sword 2s and Gold Prim Armor 2s that people use for enhancement fodder, since there's a lot of XP given with those to get things like plus 70 and whatnot. But these are a little bit more annoying to sell in the player market, since you can only put them one at a time in a slot. They don't sell for like too much right now. And like with these materials here, you can have whole stacks of like 999 if you had that much to sell for a slot. Tassas can also drop here, but they are the rare drop, the insanely rare of the combat zones. So you'll be very lucky if you get one of these, and they vary immensely in terms of how they sell, but typically you can get like 10 mil, at least 15 mil, something like that right now. But I've seen some go for like 60 to 100 mil, depending on the popularity of the weapon. Excluding that Tassa drop, though, with all of the other common drops and the raw Meseta that you're getting from all of the kills, you can actually see upwards of like 1 mil to 2 mil per hour by farming in these areas. The best one, in my opinion, that you can farm in, though, out of the 5 that I mentioned, is the Retem Alnoth area. The reason why I say that is just because of the density of that zone itself. Because it's so compact and the enemies spawn in very small little groups, you can get way more kills in this area than you would in others because of the travel distance. And because of that, I can even recommend lower ranks of Retem Alnoth. Something like rank 3 with the level 40 version, because if you are max level and have decent gear, you can actually kill the enemies almost like instantly, at least for the regular mobs. And nothing annoying will show up like it does in the highest rank of this, like Starless enemies or those Marionettes Dolls enemies. Regardless of that, because you're killing enemies so much faster, even with the less Meseta per kill and the less drops per kill, it's kind of offsetting that difference to where you can see similar gains from a rank like this, and it's easier to do. Whatever combat zones you end up choosing, I highly recommend checking out a couple of things that will help out farming these areas. If you go to the shop menu, ACSG shop, SG shop, there is this material storage. There's a 30-day version and a 90-day version. The 90 days is a little bit at a discount, so if you can get that instead, and this is pretty easily obtainable if you just play the game. For this storage, it can hold up to 2,500 materials, and also take anything automatically and put it in there. So anything like augment capsules, yellow triggers, arms refiners, strugments, all the kinds of materials and capsules, it'll go directly in there once it drops for you. So it helps with inventory management immensely, because otherwise all this stuff would go into your inventory instead. You have to keep checking it every few minutes to get things out of there. There's also this auto sell that you can buy with Star Gems, but I wouldn't recommend it as much as the material storage. With this, you can set certain things to automatically be sold once it drops. So certain rarities of like weapons or armor in this auto sell menu. And you can also choose if it sells fixes or color variants, or even those cashable items that we talked about at the beginning. I don't recommend getting this with SG because there isn't really that many drops to where this is as useful as the material storage. And if you have premium, you get this auto sell feature automatically. Either way, it's best to have both, but if you had to choose the material storage. Returning to these drops, as mentioned before, these are used at the item lab. So this is where people actually create better augments with them, but you need just a metric ton for some of these. So like the High Ale Domina here takes 30 of the Ale Sovereigns and 100 of each of the Paleo Combat Zone notes. And then as you can see with the rest of these, they also use similar augments that we've already talked about from different sources. For these, they vary in price, but some of these go for like millions, some of them a few 100,000 or 800,000. It just really depends based on how long they've been out and how good they actually are. The reason why I mention these though is that sometimes it's easier to sell a single augment when you craft one of these instead of trying to sell hundreds of augments like this, even though the profits may be the same or even slightly higher if you're trying to sell these. So just keep that in mind. But there's also other reasons why we're here. There are these fusions that are components to a lot of these augments. So like Gladius Soul has Duela Fusia, Grand Dreadkeeper has Aristus Fusia, Gigas Maste has Formita Fusia, and so do all of these tripables. And these all come from what are known as Duel Quests. These are all instance-based, which can be found in the task/quest menu, quest counter, and then Duel Quests. There's Phase 1s, which give you the Formito Fusias. There's the Phase 2, which gives you the Duela Fusia, and then Phase 3, which gives you that Aristus Fusia. Then based on the rank that you get in these quests, you get different amounts of them. So if you get a B rank, you just get one of those kind of fusias. If you get an A rank, you get 2. If you get an S rank, you get 3. And this is all based on time. So unlike other quests, which just give you a certain amount of rewards no matter how long it takes you, this actually rewards you for the faster that you're doing it. So doing it more optimally also gives you more rewards on top. That just makes this a very good opportunity. But to get the S rank, you do need to complete it in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. This is to kill a singular boss, which usually wouldn't be too bad, but they are highly buffed in this quest because they need a certain gear for each kind of phase. What I'm talking about are all of these Defi capsules. So there's Phase 1 of these, so for the Phase 1 quests. Phase 2 set I have here, so it just applies to Phase 2, and then I have a Phase 3 set that just applies to the Phase 3 quest. It can be very annoying doing this, but that makes it way easier and way faster to do so because you're getting major buffs for these. So like 7% potency for each and every one, which is 3% higher than like the highest capsule otherwise, and has massive sub bonuses. This is offensive PP recovery from the series plus 30%, Plutos plus 5% critical hit rate, and a whole bunch of stuff like that that you can stack. I do want to warn you, though, that do not put these Defi augments on your main set of gear. You want to make separate sets of your armor pieces and weapons to go into these dual quests with, because they only apply for their specific phase of quest and nothing else in the game. But with all these, they can be quite the investment. The earlier phase capsules are pretty cheap in the player market now, only being like a few thousand Meseta each per capsule. You can also get them in the Giga Strugment exchange shop at the item trader here, which you get Giga Strugments from killing Gigantics. So you can buy the Phase 1s and 2s here. For the Phase 3, currently it's not in that exchange, but there will be seasonal events from time to time where you can exchange seasonal points for those Defi capsules under exchange seasonal points from the seasonal exchange going down to the Defi capsules. But they can be quite expensive seasonal point wise as well. So with all that investment, you may imagine that these Fuchsia capsules actually would be worth it since people don't want to do that investment, and for those that do, can actually get some money out of it. Well, with these Fuchsias specifically, they are all not tradable in the player market or the personal shop. So why do I even have you bother with doing all of that if these aren't tradable themselves? Well, because of what's in the item lab of what you can craft, some people pay a premium for those because they don't want to get these fusions for themselves. So sometimes you might see a profit margin be wider than its material cost because these exist. So sometimes it might be good to go out of your way to do these to make those other capsules with the other materials. Proving my point, let's take a look at Gigas Maste here, for instance. It takes 10 of those fusions, so that means you have to do at least like 4 runs, like 3 and 1/3, and then getting 10 of each of the Gigas 4 capsules. So how much do all of these cost and the Gigas Maste cost? Well, taking a look at the Gigas capsules, I have some in my storage here. So you need 10 of these. So that means like 150k is what the price would be if you're trying to sell those instead with the Gigas Technique 4s. That would also be like another 150k, so 300k in total. And then the Precision 4s are sort of similar, like 20k, so let's just say 200k there. So 500k in total with the cost there. So what is these fusions going to make up to the Gigas Maqead then? Taking a look at it in the player markets here, the Gigas Maqead is actually worth 1 million. So chopping off that 500,000 from before, you have another room of 500k for profit here. So that means each of those fusions that you're getting out of the Phase 1 quest, since you need 10 of them for one Maqead, is actually worth 50,000. So that means each run that you do, if you get an S rank, gives you 3 of these, meaning 150k per run. And because you're doing it about every like 2 minutes or so, you're getting about 75,000 Meseta per minute, which is insane. So if you do invest into that Duel Quest gear, you can make quite a bit of Meseta. And the funny thing is, you can even buy the Gigas 4s from other people and just farm the fusions to make that room of profit. You don't need to farm the Gigas 4s yourself at all. And then these kind of can apply to the other capsules that you can make with these fusions. I know some of the trippables can sell well, like the Gua trippable here on ship 3. So you only need 3 for Mito fusions to craft this, so you can make 1 per run. And it takes 10 of each of the Gua capsules that you can get from those combat zones. So Gua Might, Precision, and Technique. And these are very cheap in the market, so you can buy them too. And this on ship 3, I believe, sells for 200k a pop. This stuff isn't always profitable though, so just keep that in mind, as some of these capsules people don't really want, like the Def Trippable, or the Sta Trippable, or the Trippable 2 even released in the Mission Pass, so it's given out for free, which really shot the price of that. If we check it out here, there's some tiers that have the Trippable 2, so like I said, a 10 here, there's a few other sets of 10 throughout, that really hurt the price of that and made it not worth to make those. But you just really just gotta eye the price, see what happens in game to see if they're worth converting from their materials. For the last good spot to farm right now, it's the Rwh Maqead area. So this is an exploration zone found in the lower section of Ratem that spawns dread enemies and recon gigants. This area can hold up to 32 people, and you're definitely going to want that amount. You don't want to do this by yourself, otherwise it'll just be painful and not really that good for Meseta. But for the dread enemies, these are basically just higher versions of regular bosses, and there are specific ones for this area. There's the Zvadi Scythe, and also the Zva Curio. The main drop for these are the Dread Keeper capsules, which can drop between tier 3 and tier 5 from these. The tier 5, of course, being the better one. These sell for about 130k to 150k on ship 3 right now, but they have been fluctuating quite a bit. There was a giant mutant event that just happened that had a 100% RDR boost that made these happen more often. So maybe it will rise up a little bit, but there is going to be a future update that may affect these too. Regardless, these should hold value for quite some time and be worth farming. And also what's neat, even with the lower tier capsules, you can exchange these for the higher tiers in that item lab, as long as you have some extra materials to go with it. For the Recon Gigants, these are smaller Malevolent or Gigantics enemies that are just regular mobs, but just way tankier and do way more damage. So for these, they can give you the Gigas 4 capsules and also the Gigas Strugments when you kill them. The Gigas Strugments, as shown before, can be used in an exchange for the Defi capsules, but there's also extra Gigas 4s that you can get every single week, and extra little materials, and also camos, which can be sold. So you might find value in these, but they do take 500 of these Strugments. All of these enemies spawn at the top of this mountain here, and if you want to check their location, there is a mini-map with icons. The purple ones are the Recon Gigants, and the green are the Dread enemies. You should have no problem farming these guys, because the Dread spawn every 5 minutes, and the Recon packs even faster than that. But there will be an addition to this place on this little extra island, or arena that's offset from the main mushroom. There's going to be a new Halvaldi Vera boss that can spawn here every so often. This is the same boss that can be found in the Phase 2 Duel Quests, but a way bigger version with a different moveset. The drops aren't completely known since it isn't in the game yet, but it will be able to drop a new Dread Scale drop, which will also be added to the regular Dread enemies. So getting a lot of those can give you a new weapon series, the Melee weapons. I think you'll be able to sell those. I just don't know how worth it will be, since it will be a guarantee instead of just a chance drop. But also with the Halvaldi Vera, there could be additional drops like armor pieces, or things like the Dreadkeeper capsules, maybe even the Gigantics capsules. It isn't completely confirmed yet, but I imagine it is good to keep that Halvaldi Vera within the loop with everything else. I'll let you guys know for sure once he arrives on the 22nd. But while we're on the topic of future things, I've mentioned this before, but Darkfall Solus will be a new urgent quest, so that might be useful to do at first. I imagine like the other urgent quests, it'll start dropping off unless if it has like a crazy unique drop that will last for a while, but it will have the 10-star weapons, which I imagine is also going to be rare in there. So maybe you can get lucky and get one of those. This will also be added to the 4-man version, which we currently have available, which you can access right here. So maybe being able to continuously farm that, you could get a 10-star to sell for a lot of Meseta. For other things in the future that we know of that could be worth some good money, there's the ultra high difficulty standing party quest that will be just like the Darkfall Solus quest, where you need very good gear, be max level, and it'll be some super boss. Hopefully it has some good drops when it first releases, and not later down the line like Solus did. There'll also be a new Duel Quest in December, so probably the Phase 4 of the Duel Quest, they'll have some new augment attached that you can try to create some best in slot augment with. For what's beyond that, though, it's unclear as the roadmap doesn't extend beyond December, but I imagine that at some point we'll go back to Gavaris and also back to Stia, probably like a couple more months for this and then a few more months after that for Stia. And those spots will have their own new augments to farm, new gear to farm, probably more 10 stars, maybe at some point even 11 star with the Stia update. I don't know, we shall see. One last thing that I did want to talk about, though, that I do know for a fact, is that we will keep getting seasonal events probably every other month. Next one is the Christmas event, and I imagine in January, some New Year's or winter event. So that will keep happening, and there will be more seasonal shops. So typically in here, there are things to grab with seasonal points that will get you Meseta by selling it in the player market, because people will still want them or want extras of them. So like these plus 60 pre-upgraded gear you can sell to new players. Basically hold on to them until the seasonal event's done, and then have people buy them non-season pretty much. Because these are very good at level 40 weapons that can carry a new player. There's also good armors down here, like the Ajax armors that are pre-upgraded. Plus 60 can go to 70 without being limit broken. A bunch of materials that you can use for stuff. Those Defi augments I was talking about. Other augments. There's also just other things that I already bought. There's also alpha reactors in here. There's a set of 200 for only 300 seasonal points a pop, and then a set of 250 for 900 seasonal points a pop. So that's a lot of raw Meseta just directly to you. Usually the way to get seasonal points is by doing certain tasks or killing seasonal enemies. And usually those seasonal enemies are part of a certain region. So right now they're in Retem for this seasonal event. That means going to like Retem Alnoth or Maqead lower level will get you these seasonal points on top of everything else that you would already get, making the farm even more crazy. So make sure when there is a seasonal event that has all this stuff, it's typically good to kill seasonal enemies or do seasonal things for these items during those times. That's all that I have for now, though. Hopefully this helps you guys out to make a lot of Meseta and get all the cosmetics and whatever else you want in the game. Let me know what you guys think, and if there's anything extra that I missed. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.